Welcome, everyone, to this session of AI and UX research tools, where we study the intersection and discuss the intersection of AI and the state of the art in user research. I want to take a moment to welcome Shrey. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, Andrea, thanks a lot for hosting me.
Why don't we start things off with your elevator pitch? What is it that Userology can do for UX researchers?
So at Userology, we want to help research teams scale up qualitative research, both by number of projects and the volume of participant feedback that they can get. We want researchers to validate smallest of their hypothesis and not get constrained on bandwidth or budget.
And tell us a little bit about how your product uses AI to enhance user research.
So we are built AI first. We are using AI to right from when the study is being set up to AI conducting the research, having conversation with the user, as well as we use AI to generate reports and insights from the conversation that have happened.
Where would you say userology fits into sort of a current UX research workflow?
So, userology can be used both for generative as well as evaluative research. We have started our journey with prototype testing, where you can use your designs. The AI gets all the feedback on what's happening on the screen to whatever the user is saying and generates a response. It could conduct a prototype testing very efficiently. We have been also working on an open-ended conversation with AI, and then we have seen some fascinating results. The generative aspects can also be used to conduct formative research, where you want to identify new ICPs, or you want to double down on one ICP and generate new hypotheses.
And what would you say is userology's superpower?
I think we want researchers to conduct qualitative research at scale in a short span of time, and we think this helps researchers to bring insights when it matters the most, when the decisions are being made, your decisions with volume of feedback.
So both how quickly you can roll out the studies as well as and get a lot of as well as the scale, how like many responses you can get in a short amount of time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. I think I would add one of the things I'm really impressed with is from a prototype testing perspective, userology, what you have built can actually looks at the stimulus, or I'm going to say sees the stimulus and can has processed is using visual processing to understand what the stimulus looks like and what people are clicking on. Why don't we jump right in and get a little bit of a demo of what it's like to interact with userology as a respondent?
Absolutely. A bit of context. So the study is basically on an app called Splitwise. It's an expense management app. This would be a participant experience, as Andrea mentioned. So I'll jump right in. So this is the welcome page. You basically let the participant know that you will be talking to an AI. Type in my name.
Hello, Shrey. Welcome to the session. Thank you for participating in this call today. My name is Nova, and I will be guiding you through this session. How is your day going?
My day's doing good. Thanks for asking.
Great to hear that. Before we get started, do I have your permission to record this session for research purposes?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome, thanks. Could you please give me a brief introduction about yourself? Maybe share a bit about your work and hobbies?
So I am the co-founder of Userology. I like to go on hikes on weekends, as well as I like to play chess a lot.
That's really cool, Shrey. Thanks for sharing. Just to let you know, this test will take about 15 to 20 minutes. And remember, it's all about the product, not your abilities. So no pressure at all. How do you usually manage shared expenses?
Yeah, so I use Venmo Group to split my expenses.
Gotcha. Do you face any challenges when managing shared expenses?
Just that when I want to split expenses unequally, I find it challenging to use Venmo Group.
Thanks for sharing that, Shrey. Can you tell me a bit more about the challenges you face when trying to split expenses unequally?
It could be that I might not have explored the feature in detail, but it's just that there is no options available, or I find it difficult to discover the feature itself.
Okay. Got it. Thanks for explaining that. So it sounds like discovering or using the feature for unequal splits is a bit tricky for you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. In this session, you'll be interacting with a prototype to complete a series of tasks. Are you ready to proceed?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Is the prototype visible to you?
Yeah, it's visible to me.
Great. So for this task, imagine you recently went on a trip with 3 friends, friends 1, 2, and 3, and all of you made various expenses. You spent $500 on booking a hotel for everyone, with the cost being evenly shared among all friends. Your task is to add this expense on the splitwise prototype. Do you understand the task?
Yeah, I understood the task.
Cool. Please go ahead and interact with the initial screens.
So yeah, I can add expense and split expense with groups and individuals. I can record payment and settle up with my friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
Which of the 3 options on the welcome screen would you select and why?
There is add your apartment option, which is something that's not relevant to the study. I can see group trip being one of the options, but I'll go ahead with skip setup for now.
Gotcha. Can you share why you chose to skip the setup?
It's just that I don't know the app. I don't want to invest my time in setting up, only to realize that it's not useful to me.
Thanks for sharing that, Shrey.
Okay.
Please go ahead and continue with the task.
So I can add expense. I can start a new group. So I'll go ahead with starting a new group. Yeah.
Sure. What are your thoughts on this screen?
Yeah, I think I'll try to add an image, but I'm not able to add an image here.
The photo option isn't clickable in this prototype. Can you go ahead and name the group and select the type?
Sure, I think I'll go ahead with the type trip. And yeah. Okay, so I'll go ahead and add group members. I can see I can enter name, email, and phone.
Okay.
To add friends in this splitting option. I'm trying to go ahead, but I'm not able to continue on this option.
Why do you think it might not be working based on the task details given?
Okay, I can see that I need to add 3 friends, exclusive options, and mark it as finish. Got it. So
great.
Adding expense, I have hotel booking as one of the option. I have 500 as mentioned in the task, and yeah, I think I've added the expense.
Okay. Great. Now that you've completed the task, did you face any challenges during the process?
Not particularly. It's just that a few things were a bit unclear during the onboarding, but nothing major as such.
Gotcha. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very easy and 1 being very difficult, how would you rate the difficulty of completing this task?
I would say 2.
Thanks, Shrey. Can you share a bit more about why you rated it a 2?
What do you mean? So I think 2 would be on the easier side. So the task was pretty simple. So yeah, I think 2 is the perfect number for it.
Thanks for explaining that. We'll now move on to the next section.
Yeah, so this is about it.
It was responding to what you said. So you would give it information and it would ask a follow-up question that was specific to what you had said. It was probing on a few different areas and asking, yeah, and acknowledging what you said. So like building rapport as it went and sort of acknowledging as it moved forward. And it seemed aware of what you were clicking on the screen and sort of what was available. Yeah, I think one person mentioned that it interjected a little bit more than they would have liked with the and ahas, but in general, I'm impressed. Thank you.
I'd also answer the aha question and how you can control it. It's called active listening. So we have a control on that, and we have a matrix on that. So
you can dial that in a little
yeah,
and
yeah.
make a selection. That's fantastic. Wonderful. One person asked a question, which was, what would the AI do if the prototype didn't work or really, really hit a glitch?
So in that case, I think the glitch could be that you are clicking somewhere, but it's not functional. It's not looped in, right? So in that case, the AI's first step would be to understand what they were trying to achieve by clicking there. And the second step would be guiding them through so that the task completion is not hit. Yeah, so that's the policy that we have, that you don't guide the user directly. Understanding what they were trying to achieve and then guiding them is the right process.
That's fantastic. At this point, I would love to jump into, the seeing how you make that happen and seeing what it's like for a researcher to implement this.
So it's pretty simple to implement. I will create a very short study on this topic itself. Just like any other prototype testing platforms, you create a study. I'll just name it as Splitwise. And you give the study objective. So this is the source of truth, a North Star for AI on both fronts. One is when it's asking the question, when is it asking the question, how it's phrasing, and when it comes to the analysis, what are the information it's extracting. Especially you are doing something at scale, you need something that's a North Star for you, right? So these are the objectives, and you also add the user details as well. So I have it written in a doc. I'll just paste it in the interest of time.
It's used for the recruiting.
We are not using AI to recruit it. It's basically you have to sort of mention all the screeners, all the demographic details yourself.
Okay, but that's for so the AI knows who who you're planning to recruit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like prototype testing was one of the example that I showed. The first 3 minutes, if you see, it was just a open-ended conversation on me, my experience splitting expenses. So voice interview is something that we are also exploring, where you can have a conversation of like 45 minutes. It can explore anything as open-ended as their experience with an unknown app, and then deep diving it down to what you are building. So once the setup, the objective, and the demographics are done, you would of course need a prototype for it to function. So this is important because the AI is getting information on a frame and a component level. It's not just on a screen level. Each of this component is basically something that the AI understands. For example, a magnifying glass at the top is something that works as a search, and we are using it to generate questions. So post that, you type out the book hotel, split $500, let us say, with 3 of your friends with Splitwise, right? And now we will set the start screen and the end screen. This is basically for it to know when the task is completed and what is the happy path that is expected from the user as well. Yeah. And once you have done that, we use AI to rephrase your task details as well. The task details might not be as relatable to the audience, right? So in that case, it suggests that you need to sort of add some real life scenarios, or you need to sort of remove some kind of leading or lagging questions, right? And yeah, so this is basically the example that the AI came up with. You planned a weekend getaway, right? And you booked a hotel, right? And you have to figure out the splitting options among equal, unequal, and by shares, right? So this is something that works as a principle for someone to set up a study very quickly without making any kind of errors. One of the features we are working on, figuring out how clear the task is, what's the scope, is it measurable or not, and whether it has any prototype issues or not. So this is basically a metric which would allow people to check what's exactly lacking in the task. Well, if you want to explore something on, let us say, the screen, right? You want to explore balances and whether the user is able to understand the math that went into calculating these balances. You simply mention that, ask the user whether they understand the math behind the balances, and it would make sure that when the user is on the screen, it would ask this question.
Right. So there's a way to give details for the moderator, the AI moderator, in addition to a layer on top of just what the prompt for the user is.
Yeah. So I clicked on generate an interview guide. So all the things that you have set up, right? Objective, demographics, task details, the prototype itself, and all these details are crystallized into a interview guide. So this is the guide that the AI will follow. It's a set of instructions, which you would usually use it yourself when you are conducting the interview. And it's in a format of like a free flowing doc. It would generate this first draft of guide, a way for you to also see like how the AI thinks, as well as how the AI will follow step by step during the process. It's completely editable. Simply mention something that you want to deep dive on or probe more, or change the format of the answer itself. So deciding the splitting options and explore thoughts on different options, right? And you want to explore that you want the user to compare this experience with your competitors, right? So you simply mention that. You also ask AI to deep dive on this particular aspect if the response is unclear. And think of it as a module, right? You can use this module similarly during the debrief or when the NPS score question is going on. So for example, rate the ease of use of this app from 1 to 5 and compare it with your competitors that you mentioned in the beginning. So it will take care of this question, and it will make sure that it asks the question when the user is giving that answer.
And I noticed that there's an estimated time section, which is great, because when there's an AI doing the moderating, like you would know if you were the moderator, how long you wanted this section to be, but you don't necessarily know what a different moderator would do. So seeing the estimated time is really nice.
Yeah, it also allows you to check whether how much exploration do you want on that section, so that you don't miss out on the insights that are meant to be given on the last section.
One person is asking a question, which is it possible to create prompting the user to say where they would click, but not letting them click through the prototype right away? So you could say, where would you click first and what would you expect to see next? And then have a conversation before they move forward in the prototype. Is that possible?
Yeah. So yeah, that can absolutely be done. So I'm assuming that if you are having a prototype, that would be like 2 separate sections for it. You can define for this section, when the user arrives on the screen, ask this question as soon as they arrive on the screen. And when they answer, let them know that they can continue, right? So after you let them know that they can continue, they can click and continue on the flow. Do we have any questions, or should I
We have a
continue?
few questions. One other question, is it possible to use existing frameworks? So to reference something like jobs to be done as an example, and say like, use a jobs to be done interview framework to explore a topic. Like, would that as a prompt to the AI moderator work? Or do we break that down a little bit more?
So I'm assuming that jobs to be done framework, while it's a sort of a norm, the content of that framework would be something that would be very specific to that organization. So you can definitely specify the jobs to be done framework at the top of the interview guide and let AI take it from there, and it would sort of create that particular thing when the session is going on.
Okay, so if you give it enough context, it can roll with that, but it wouldn't be able to infer the jobs to be done framework for your particular system or domain. That makes sense. Someone is wondering if you've run comparative studies between this system and real researchers, and like tested on speed or accuracy or results, of the study.
We actually did run a blind test, which is we showed a transcript that was generated by someone working the design team, research team, and the AI, and we came up. We have some senior researchers working with us, and they analyzed this thing and they rated that how close is this to like a human moderated research. It's available on our website. If you want to explore more, do reach out to me as well. I can share the blind study with you.
One person is curious, is this based on a number of different AI models, or is this specifically referencing something like ChatGPT or like a particular model?
Yeah, no, it's a multi-model. We are using AI, a different model to analyze the image and come up with a framework on that front. We are using a different model to analyze the text. We are also using a different model to sort of translate that text to voice as well.
That makes sense. So it's a combination of different things for in different places. Someone wants to know if there are voice options, and I know the answer to that. So let's see.
That's the second. The voice options, and one of the question was on the active listening, the aha were too much. So I'll cover all those things here. So we have voice options, as well as we are also working on a couple of options for the moderator itself as well. And something that's really interesting to us is a human like moderator for people and demographic who are much more natural to speaking to humans. When it comes to voice, we have a library of around 200 plus voice combinations. I will play a couple of them for you to check the differences.
Hello, Fable, your virtual aide, equipped to handle your information and...
Hey, I'm Helios, your friendly neighborhood.
Yeah, you can use all these options to...
Good day. I'm Amy, your digital assistant.
We have some speaking configurations, like for example, responsiveness is one of the bigger aspects, right? You want AI to let the user respond much more often than you would, so you will have a benchmark which you want to compare it with. So responsiveness, response speed is another option. Sensitivity is one another thing, right? So this is the active listening part. If you decrease it to, let us say, 0, it would sort of not use filler words to let the user know that it's listening.
And remind me again, if I want to be very specific in the wording of a question or a prompt, how do I do that in the guide? Is that something that I put in quotes or in brackets, or do I give it instructions to say that directly? Someone's asking that as a question.
Yeah. So you can use single quotes, and the things that are mentioned in the single quote will be mentioned as it is. Once the setup is done, you can launch it. There are a couple of options on controlling the video recording, audio recording, whether you want to make it mandatory or optional. Audio recording is something mandatory because you cannot talk to an AI without an audio. And you can test it with your own participants internally with your team as well. Something interesting with which we are also working on is a personalized link. This is something that you can use to, use some contextual information about a user you already have, right? And the AI would basically take that as an input, and you can mention all these contexts that you would provide in that box and in the guide, and it would sort of take that information, and it would feel that it's basically coming from someone who already knows that the user is using the app this way.
You can give it background information about, like, this is a long running customer or a very active user, and it will reference that or give some acknowledgement of that in the interview.
Yeah. Acknowledgement, or if you want to verify the screener questions, or if you want to, deep dive on something interesting that they mentioned in.
Great. And so you can, it looks like, bring your own participants as you were showing us, or you could recruit from a pool. Is that connected to a particular recruiting service?
Yeah. So we're using respondents public panel for it. It's a panel of 3 million plus participants spread across almost all the countries on the globe.
Yeah.
Very heavy on respondents from US, and it almost covers every sort of filter that you would ideally want from any kind of panel that you would operate, even internal panels. And you can have all the filters on gender, age group, income, level of education, And yeah, you can launch it. You can also add screener questions inside as well.
One person's curious, does it support other languages? I know it has accents, but how does it handle other languages?
So we currently have English, Spanish, and French as something that we can confidently say that it would be like more than 80% accurate. The transcription is something that is you can use the model to convert that transcript to English. But for voice to voice conversation, there are a couple of languages that we have tested, and it really works well. But we have all the other languages that are available. It's just that we know that I think Spanish and French, English is something that we can deliver accurately. So,
Okay.
but we have all the other languages as well.
Great. And I see a really lovely feature, which is I can give it keywords for the transcription. So if I have particular language or particular jargon in the interviews or in my domain, I can give it some words that it may not otherwise recognize.
Yeah.
I would love to move forward to analysis. Once I've fielded the study, what does it look like?
It's a study that we internally conducted, which I am authorized to show and public. So this is a study on Splitwise itself. There are two parts of it. One is what you can get on a participant level, right? And what does the overall analysis of all the participant combined looks like. So you can standard, I think you can like download all the video, audio, transcript as well. But the interesting part is that it would come up with themes that are something that you can, so for example, for this particular participant, navigation was something that was a little positive, and the quote was, I have to click on this carousel, but I will basically go on and give my feedback on the onboarding screen. There were some confusions on the functionality. They were exploring task number 3. So this task, the themes and the quotes would be basically something that would be mapped out. Okay. On the results section, there are primarily like 3 meta sections: qualitative, quantitative, and the responses in the form of a tabular format. On the qualitative aspects, going back to our research objective, which was on understanding whether the users are able to add a new member, add a new expense, and whether they are comfortable handling complex expenses, right? So it came up with these insights supported by numbers. For example, so these insights would be something that would kind of summarize based on the research objective that was mentioned.
So it came up with what was important to synthesize and to pull out from the results on its own, based on what we gave it at the very beginning, which was our study objectives.
Yeah, the fascinating part is it's not just on what the user mentioned, but the flow that was expected. So initially, when I was adding the task, I was mentioning that this is the flow. This is the start screen, this is the end screen, right? So it picked up that flow and figured out that, I need to sort of bifurcate based on this flow and come up with this analysis.
If I wanted to see the 15 participants or the 8 participants that had confusion, and I wanted to kind of gauge that or vet that for myself and sort of get a better sense of what the confusion was, how would I do that?
Yeah, so we don't have a direct way to link this 15 participants directly to that particular flow. We are working on that, but you can definitely mention the 15 participants and point you to a direction where they were facing this challenge or they successfully completed it. Coming on the snippets, I think patterns, both on the challenges and positives, something that the AI generates, and it's not necessarily tied up to this overview. Generated this pattern based on its understanding on the task. For example, task instruction is something that remains as a base. But if you see that there are a couple of patterns that came out, maybe on the onboarding, it lacked clarity and context, and it's supported by 19 users.
Quotes with links. Okay, great.
Yeah. So you can jump onto that particular moment when they said it, along with the transcript.
Awesome.
We're missing.
I would want the context of the app itself. I would want a screen showing like the entire app screen and where I would even find this ad expense. So like an animated GIF.
So you can see the transcript, but you can also watch the video and see the screen that was being interacted with and what the mouse was doing. So that's really helpful to gain that context. Let's move on to the other analysis features.
So I think like completion rates, misclicks, are something that we do mention in the quantitative aspects. The user experience rating, which was mentioned on a user level, is something that you can see on a bar chart, so that you can exactly point to this particular task which needs some kind of supervision. Usability score is something that we are working on. We have built internally that how we can use the qualitative feedback along with the quantitative feedback and assign a score to it. It's something that's in the works. Okay, and the last section, I think it's the Q&A, where it basically summarizes all the responses in a tabular format. So it's easier for you to pinpoint to one participant and what they mentioned about that particular thing or in that task. And you can jump onto that particular moment and see if there is something interesting that you can find, which the AI didn't find, right? So
one wanted to clarify. So in this overview, we don't know which 15 this is, but we can go to the Q&A and look at the task success and get the pull out which participants had success and didn't from cross-tabbing with the Q&A, but that's a manual process.
that's a manual process. That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just hear a little bit the ways that your product is keeping user data safe and secure.
From day one itself, we knew that this would be a concern and a very big concern. We personally faced it as product folks as well. There are a couple of things that we are doing, which so like we are working on AI guardrails, which is something that lets the platform decide and control the conversation. There are a couple of things which we are doing on, so basically we are handling sensitive data very separately, strapping out all the PIIs if they're dealing with their own users. We do regular security audits, quarterly audits that we do it with our tech team, as well as an agency that we are security agency that we are working with.
What kind of studies or analysis is this a really good fit for? Help us think about where to put this in our toolkit.
I would say wherever the requirement to add volume to the qualitative projects is required. Let us say interviewing 5 people brought out that insight. I want to talk to 20 more.
So if I don't have time to do the scheduling and line up a time to talk to folks, that this would be a great way to get them to be able to interact with it on their schedule, in the middle of the night if they're around the world from me, or whenever they are free. Are there particular studies that this is not a good fit for?
Maybe I can double down on that front. So do not compare this with like prototype testing is one aspect, voice interviews is another. Since we'll be adding a lot more research methods down the line, that is the reason why I'm generalizing it, that whenever qualitative data is required and you need volume and in short span of time, you should use something like this. But when you compare this with methods like unmoderated, this is way superior in terms of getting qualitative insights in smaller time frames.
If folks want to use this for themselves, what should they do?
So you can always go on to the userology.co page and explore what we are doing, who we are working with. But if there is anything that you want to mention about the demo, and then get in touch with me, feel free to reach out via LinkedIn.
Is there anything you'd like to add as we're wrapping up?
Happy to get feedback, know your thoughts on this new evolving space.
I think we're getting a lot of responses of thank you, and that people are excited to learn more. So this is great. Thank you so much for your time today, Shrey, and for all the work you put into making this possible.
Thank you.